go to the good to go. He looked like Harry Maymeyer and Spears when they got him on the Bronx. Santiago's friend on the road. And a squeeze on trying to shake the stranger down. Stranger disputed, can't ride the bridge. Can't ride his buckskin in a talking old suit.
Thank you all so much.
Curtis Quickbomb. Thank you, Curtis. He'll be back at break time. Let's give Curtis a big round of thank you. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 18th annual Will Rogers Medallion Award Show. Tonight we have the privilege of presenting the awards for 2021. The books we are honoring tonight were published in 2020. Now, as is my custom, I would like to repeat a few opening background remarks before you join me in a tribute to this great America. Nearly 80 years ago, a tall, bearded, and slightly stooped man stood on a field in southeastern Pennsylvania and asked whether this nation, or any nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are equal, could that nation, or any nation so conceived, long endure? About 75 years after that, and following another cataclysmic struggle, again testing the survival of that nation, that ended in triumph, an unlikely person and the new medium of television reviewed and confirmed that ideal and the moral basis of that triumph. Tonight, I would like to renew those remarks and review them that Red Skelton made so many times and so long ago, at a time when many of us are wondering about the unity and the survival of that very nation. I, an individual, me, a committee of one, pledge I promised all of my worldly goods without any self-pity. Allegiance. Allegiance means, sorry folks, as George Washington said, I've given my eyesight to the service of my country. Allegiance, my love and my dedication to the flag, our standard, Old Glory, a symbol of courage, and wherever she waves, there is respect, because your loyalty has given her the dignity that shouts, freedom is everybody's job. Amen. Of the united, that means that we have all come together. States, individual communities that have gathered together in 48 great states, 48 individual communities that, with pride and dignity and purpose, all divided by imaginary lines, yet united in a common cause, and therefore a love of country, of America. And to the Republic, a republic is a sovereign state in which power is invested in the representatives chosen by the people, and the government is the people, and it derives its power from the people, and the leaders get their power also from the people, for which it stands, one nation, meaning blessed by God, indivisible, incapable of being divided, with liberty, which is freedom, the right and power for one person to live the way they want, without fear or threats or any sort of retaliation, and justice, the principle and qualities of dealing fairly with each other. For all, boys and girls, that means that this is as much your country as it is my country. Since Red and I were small boys, 2 states have been added to our country, and 2 words have been added to that pledge: under God. Wouldn't it be a shame if somebody said that's a prayer and eliminated that pledge from our schools? I ask you now to stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. You may be seated. As part of my introduction tonight, I have the privilege of making a very special announcement and the very great pleasure of introducing an extraordinary person. Some 20 years ago, Margot Medallion and I were judges for the poetry section of the Academy of Western Artists, the Buck Ramsey Award. As the number of worthy cowboy poetry books increased, we decided to develop another award to make note of those increased number of worthy cowboy poetry books and honor them. The outcome of that was the formation of the Will Rogers Medallion Award. Over the years, it has grown, and many other categories have been added. However, cowboy poetry is still the basis at the honoring of excellence in Western media is still our goal. Now, I have reached 80 years, and it's time for me to turn the leadership of this thriving and vibrant organization over to new leadership. It gives me a great deal of pleasure and confidence in the future of the WRBA to introduce to you the new Executive Director of the Will Rogers Medallion Award Committee, Chris S.
The Will Rogers Medallion Award Program has been in existence for more than 17 years and have honored such distinguished authors as Craig Johnson, Paul Colt, Preston Lewis, and Irene Bennett Brown. As the incoming executive director, I hope to continue building on the work and traditions established by Charles Williams and the WRMA board. My goal at the offset is to increase awareness of the Will Rogers Medallion Awards, helping to generate interest in the program and increase entries, and to add to the event schedule for participating authors during our annual awards celebration. special guest speakers, panel or two, all designed to encourage and grow interest in writing about the American West. I look forward to hearing from you with your thoughts about the Will Rogers Medallion Award, and I thank you for that opportunity. Now, as the very first thing I'd like to do is, all of this could not come together without the help of Lori Cockrell. Where are you, Lori? We want you to stand up. We have something for you. All right, I'm done talking now.
Thank you, Chris. A couple of quick announcements before we start. Our official photographer is Joe Owenby, and our medals girl is Myra Coleman, and she will escort the winners back to the booth or the backdrop where Joe will take their official picture. If any of you want to join him in the interval between awards, you're welcome to do so. At the end, we will also have our traditional Go portrait, and that will probably be in front of the backdrop as well. Never drink upstream from the herd. Income tax has made more liars in this country than golf. You can laugh. Bill made statements like that to be laughed at. There's no sense in being, or there's no difficulty in being a comedian when you have the whole government working for you. All you have to do is just report the facts. I don't even have to exaggerate. Our first category tonight is written Western humor. This is a very difficult category because so many humorous verbal stories do not translate well to the written word. Conversely, some people simply have the knack for writing very funny stuff, but aren't really very funny in person. Will, of course, was both. Both our silver and gold medallion winners are entries from a very familiar and multi-talented source. H.H. Lomax is the alter ego of Preston Lewis. These books contain grins and giggles and guffaws with serious and solid scholarship, which is a pretty neat trick indeed. The silver medal goes to Preston for North to Alaska, where we meet Mr. Soapy Smith, a deadly con man with a heart of green. The gold medallion goes to a book entitled The First Herd to Abilene, where we learn that cowboying life is filled with humor, even if the protagonist doesn't realize it at the time. The books were published by Wolfpack Publishing.
Our next category is one that we consider to be one of our most important because it is where young minds encounter information on their level about their world and their heritage. Western fiction illustrated for younger readers is vital, especially in this age when there is a movement to homogenize and degenerate our past, as witnessed by the efforts of some powers that be to stop calling boys boys and girls girls. They combine humor, knowledge, attractive illustrations, and fascinating stories to teach and entice young minds and older ones as well. The Silver Medallion goes to an unusual and haunting story from a first American perspective, Eagle Horse by Ron Nordyke. This book combines the universal bond between girls and horses with coming of age and a close harmony with the natural world. It was published by Copperpen. Our gold medalist in this category goes to another coming-of-age story with a very different setting. Bandit the Cowdog by Phil Mills Jr., illustrated by Gene Conway. Phil and Bandit remind us that sometimes life's lessons are not pain-free, and that's not all teachers or lessons come in classrooms. This book was published by Mascot Books. Our category is one of the most enduring forms of enjoyment of traditions and tales of the West, Western graphics, illustration, visual humors, and iconic images. The artists who produced these visual representations of world of the imagination ranged from people, mostly men, but not all, who turned out a wide range of crisply drawn stories every month to cartoonists whose line drawings capture the foibles of cowboys, and they are many. To find artists who capture the ever-changing visual grandeur of the West and the people who inhabit it. Our honoree for Western graphics and iconic images this year is Ron Nordyke, who brings to life that not only the color of the natural world, but the vivid land of the imagination in Eagle Horse. We're going too fast. Our Metals Girl is just getting to fill. So. Come on, speed it up, Metals Girl.
Goodness. The thought that we're faster than anybody is amazing. Our next category is is Western fiction, younger readers. It's a difficult category to judge because it covers the widest range of ages, from chapter book readers to the older teens and even the young readers in their 20s. These tend to be, however, the best plotted and best reading of the books we have. They capture our it's a very competitive category, and it covers a wide range of subjects. We are most appreciative of the styles and skills of the authors, and we honor them tonight. The first Copper Medallion, for the 5th place, goes to an exciting tale of love, temptation, desperate measures in colorful Silverton, Colorado during Prohibition. What do you do when the woman you love is in debt to mobsters from Denver? The Knockover is one answer. It was written by E.S. Jameson, and it was published by Paper Trail Publishing. The 4th place medallion goes to a very different time and place, the frontier of the 1830s, and a very different human saga of loss, courage, endurance, and survival during the dislocation of an entire people that we call the Tale of Tears. Cherokee Clay demonstrates the power of connection and caring during the most trying, difficult times in over multiple generations. It was written by Regina McLemore and published by Fife Press, which is an imprint of Agma Creative Media. Yes, you, as a representative of Agma, we wish you would come forward because we will take your picture. There's, it's okay. Okay. This is not the first time that we'll call Agma tonight. They have multiple. The bronze medallion goes to Carmen Pion for her story of courage, personal and professional growth, and a friendship in a raw and dangerous, challenging environment, the frontier of eastern Oregon. It is titled Lillian's Legacy, and Carmen's skillful writing has the power to transport you back to a very different time and place. It was published by Painted Hill Press. Carmen could not be with us tonight. What do you do when you leave home, travel 1,000+ miles into a new country looking for a new life, and you end up in the middle of a shooting war in Wyoming between cattlemen and sheep herders? Well, if you are Dilly, you grow up fast and figure out right from wrong in a hurry and develop the courage of your convictions. This silver medallion coming-of-age adventure tale is told with deep insight into history and the human heart. Dilly, an orphan boy, Orville Dillard Jr., which is why you call him Dilly, is another of Matthew P. Mayo's memorable young people placed in a stressful situation and growing up because of it and through it. It's great reading for teens and everyone else who enjoys fast-moving adventure. 5-Star Gale has published this winning story in their outstanding series of books. Winning a gold medal in this very challenging and competitive category takes an extraordinary piece of writing. On a Good Horse is exactly that. The first character you meet is a young boy growing up in a city who's going to be, when he grows up, a soccer star, or maybe a graphic artist, or maybe both. However, his plans take a detour when he's told to go live with his father on a ranch. He reacts with typical teen angst and meets the second memorable character in this intriguing story, a horse. But not just any horse. A very fast horse who is no more impressed with the boy than the boy is with him. It's a tribute to author Darby Kirchhoff. Skill, both internal dialogues run true as they come to grips with each other, even as their worlds change. This intriguing and delightful book was published by Owl Hollow Press.
Our next category is relatively new to us, but is one of the oldest forms of storytelling, the short story. A direct descendant of the oral tradition, they have been newly revitalized by the addition of new and exciting forms of accessibility. They come to us in three forms: in an anthology, which is a collection of stories by several authors, in a collection of stories by a single author, and a single story publication. And we have examples of all three this year. Our first honorees tonight come to us from one of the newest anthologies entitled Saddlebag Dispatches. More on them in a moment. Our fifth place copper medallion goes to Sharon Frame Gay's haunting tale of youthful dreams, reality, aging, and memories called North Star. It truly is better to have loved and lost than to have never been loved or been young at all. Saddlebag Dispatches also published our fourth place medallion winner, Not So Long in the Tooth. Anthony Wood wrote this tale of justice delayed but not denied. It is the story of finding courage in the face of avoidance and numbing fear. We need to say a word about Saddlebag Dispatch. In the proud tradition of Saturday Evening Post, they bring a quarterly collection of the finest in short story fiction, timely articles, and features on many subjects, interviews with authors, poetry, and just plain interesting reading. It is a welcome and lively addition to current Western literature, and we at the Will Rogers Medallion Awards program are proud to call them our friends and to award them a publisher's medallion. In the interest of full disclosure, we should also note that one of the co-founders of the Saddlebag Dispatch, the late Dusty Richards, who's offered Dusty, was also instrumental in the Will Rogers Medallion Award, adding categories, most especially Western fiction. We are indebted to Dusty, and we're going to honor his memory right now. The third place medallion goes to a collection of short stories. It is titled Dangerous Trails and was written by an old friend named John D. Nesbitt. It is a collection of a dozen tales covering a dozen different situations, all of which are written in the very talented and distinctive style of a wonderfully versatile author at the top of his game. John D. Nesbitt has won awards for his poetry as well as full-length novels, and this book is a sampling of why he has been so honored. It was published by Sundown Press. This one is a personal favorite of mine. What Infamy, our Silver Medallion Award winner, appeared in an anthology entitled Under Western Stars, and it was published by Western Fictioneers and written by Vicki Rose under the name of Easy Jackson. Our gold medallion goes to a short story added to the back of the novel. The story, Holy Sabbath Morning, was written by Darrell Sparkman and added to his novel Hard Times. It is a haunting tale of the effect of a gunfight forced on a man and the lingering effect it has on him and the important people in his life. It's an unusual point of view, and the author's insight into both motivation and response is gripping and powerful. It is one of the best short stories reviewed in this relatively new category. Ogma Creative Media, through the Galway Press imprint, is to be congratulated for another splendid addition to the fine Western literature. As is the established custom of the Will Rogers Medallion Award program, a gold medallion is awarded to the publisher of the first place entry as well as the author. So congratulations, Kate.
I think Ogma has some fans here tonight. Our next category is actually the second one that we added after cowboy poetry. And we are very proud to have them. Western cookbooks are a surprisingly rich source, not only of good recipes, but Western culture as well. As authors and Western cooks, Deanna Dickinson McCall and Gay, I'm going to pronounce that Gardella, and I hope it's close to how she pronounces it, point out at the title of this richly illustrated collection of innovative ranch foods, Cowboy Cuisine, Beyond Biscuits and Beans. Modern Western cooking has gone far beyond the traditional chuck wagon fare. However, not to fear. This cookbook is like having a couple of friendly expert cooks beside you chatting about food, Texas, ranching, different cooking traditions, and oh, by the way, helping you produce savory and delicious dishes. Deanna and Gay help you produce meals that will have the bunkhouse or the apartment house lined up for more. This Gold Medallion cookbook was produced by White Bird Publications. We are proud to have a representative from White Bird here tonight also. We had to add a category of books that were of award category, but didn't quite fit into our other numerous categories. The name Western Mavericks just seemed to fit. It's not listed in our entry forms, by the way, because it's reserved for the judges. It puts books in that they really like, but can't squeeze into some other category. The 5th place Copper Medallion goes to Quinn Kaiser Cochran for a gritty tale set in pre-World War I West, in this particular case, Nevada, but it could just as well have been put in Colorado or Montana or any other Western state where mine owners were trying to crush mine workers' attempts to not only organize, but to demand better working conditions and better pay. Widowmaker tells a story that most of us pretty much are unaware of, but which still echoes through Western mining country. On more than one occasion, armed warfare broke out between the miners and the wealthy mine owners and their allies, who were the state governments, which included troopers from the United States government, federal troops. This is a very well-told story with a powerfully drawn hero in a very volatile environment. Not your usual Western, but this book is very well worth written. It was published by Western Edge Books. The 4th place Copper Medallion goes to Secrets of the Grove End. The sheriff in this wonderful novel, in John Hanson's well-written, charming book, is not a grizzled, hard-bitten gun hand, but an early 20s young man who grew up in the community in which he is now trying to enforce the law. The time is in the middle of World War II, and our protagonist must deal with all sorts of human friction, as well as some real crimes in a community that remembers him as a kid and still reveres, I'll get that, the old sheriff. The Old West is becoming the modern West, and change is hard on everyone. Summit Creek Press produced this fascinating story. The bronze medallion, for the third place, goes to another old friend and an exciting writer, Jane Kirkpatrick. Something worth doing, she tells the stories of the triumphs, the defeats, and the discouragements, the everyday challenges and the small victories of a lady in mid-19th century trying to raise a family, take care of a disabled husband, support a growing family, and speak out in favor of women's rights in a culture that was hostile to the concept. It's a tribute to Jane's skill that she never becomes strident, but remains sympathetic through all of her tribulations. It's based on a true story. It's a reminder that life on the frontier, whether it's at civilization's edge or society's edge, demands inner strength and extracts a heavy toll. It was published by Revell. Our silver medallion winner tells of a very different heroine living in a very different environment. Ann Parker's musical shop owner, amateur sleuth, and lady with a secret past is trying to make her music shop and a success in San Francisco of the 1880s. In this intriguing mystery named Mortal Music, the author skillfully integrates the city of San Francisco into the story as another character. And it gives an unusual story an extra dimension. Inez Stannard is one of the most memorable characters ever to grace the pages of a Western novel. She is a detective with unusual skills and an interesting, if disreputable, past. The book was published by Poison Pen Press. All the winners in this category are unique and different. But winning a gold medal in the Maverick category demands something truly unique. Fortunately, Quinlan and Jones provide that truly unique experience. I first met Bess Quinlan, I'm sorry, Bess, I'm in the first or second Lincoln County Cowboy Symposium in Ruidoso, more years ago than both of us fare to remember. At that time, the big question for debate was just short of shooting debate, by the way, was should cowboy poetry rhyme? Bess, who was and is an outstanding cowboy poet, was firmly in the doesn't have to camp. He has gone on from these concerns to become more noted for what he always was, an excellent storyteller. Now he is with a book with fantastic illustrations entitled Quinlan and Jones. Is it a memoir? Yeah. Is it a collection of very funny stories? Yes. Is it a pictorial essay of the West, cowboys, and life in general? Most emphatically, yes. Is it the gold medal medallion winner like no other? Yes. This is another one of the long line of wonderfully outstanding books produced by C.J. Hadley in Range Magazine that everyone who loves the West should have on their bookshelves.
Our next category was once again one of our most active as well as our most competitive, Western romance. Despite initial misgivings, those who were wiser than the lone holdout and insisted that it would be both lively and competitive have been proven correct. Charles now only wishes he had been included in this earlier. This year we have had another strong story entry list, and picking the best has been difficult but enjoyable. The 5th place Copper Medallion goes to one of our favorite authors who follows the adventure of her family of frontiersmen as they undertake a perilous journey to what is then a foreign country, Texas. Set a couple of decades prior to Texas independence, what they find at the end of their entertaining and richly described journey adds to author Dorothy Wiley's reputation as both a master of historical detail and the human heart. It was published by Dorothy Wiley Publications. Let's give Dorothy a round of applause. Harlan Haig is the master of highly detailed romances in varied but genuine Western settings with offbeat but sympathetic, believable characters. In On Sunset Rim, he joins a cattle drive from deep Texas to Montana in a changing and modernizing West. When Bobby turns out to be Bonnie, all sorts of complications, including romantic ones, ensues. This is a good book. You should get that for the plane as you ride home. This informative entertainment story has earned a 4th place Copper Medallion. It was published by Great Cat Bird Books. Kansas does not spring to mind when one thinks ranch country, but it does have some of the finest ranges in America. However, starting a ranch is never easy, as the young married couple in tangled times finds out. Cattle, rustlers, fire, neighborhood tensions, family tensions, and a pregnant sheriff's are just a few of the complications in Irene Bennett Brown's appealing pair run into the Bronze Medallion winner. As always with Irene Bennett Brown's books, you feel as if you're sitting at the table listening to her great stories. This is another fine book published by 5 Star. Devlin Spencer has a knack for creating appealing characters and then putting them in impossible but very human situations. In this case, it is the hero who has a shady past and a skill with horses, and the heroine who has to come to grips with the conflict between her heart and society standards. An Impossible Price earns a silver medallion with a story blending together Western romance with inspirational fiction in a realistic historical setting. An impressive and enjoyable achievement. It was published by Wilson Creek Publishing. By the way, while we generally do not make a particularly big deal about the publishers, they are very important to us, both as authors and as readers. After all, we as Western literature fans are constantly in competition with all sorts of other types of media for attention and shelf space, either electronically or in actual stores. In this hyper-contested category, it has taken a very special book to earn the gold medallion, and we're proud to say that Karen Bishop, writing as K.B. Taylor, has produced such a book. What happens when a young farm girl who seldom has gone more than a few miles from her home is suddenly thrust into management in a high-end mercantile in a big, to her, city? If that's not enough, she has to care for various nieces. And on top of all of that dislocation, she stammers. Hattie's family tells that tale of courage, competence, and unexpected romance based on actual family history, including a mysterious magic healer who turns out to be part of the author's family history. It is both a touching and satisfying tale that grips you from the first page and keeps you turning pages. And it was published by Boot Top Books. Let's hear it for K.B. Taylor. We are now going to take a 10-minute break to give everyone a chance to stand up and race for the bathroom. So, on your mark, get set, go. So when you hear Curtis playing again, please be seated. Go! Charles has promised to sing if you don't take your seat, so please, everything that is holy, sit down now.
Welcome back.
Casey, can you close the doors back there for me? Thank you.
Shuffle. This is called the MC Shuffle. Welcome back. Our first order of business is, in the second half of our show, is not particularly listed in your program in the order of presentation, but it's a very important addition to our business tonight. The presentation of the new Will Rogers Medallion Award Committee Lifetime Achievement Awards. The Will Rogers Medallion Award Committee is proud to announce the institution of two new awards, the Lifetime Achievement Award and the Golden Lariat. The Lifetime Achievement Award is for authors, publishers, and illustrators who have made significant contributions to Western literature and media over many years. Eligible recipients will have won at least one Will Rogers Medallion Award in 3 different years, demonstrating a consistently high level of excellence in publications and diligently combined entertainment with understanding of the history, traditions, and values of the American West, along with the respect for that history and those values and traditions. Will Rogers himself demonstrated the ideals of excellence in written, visual, and recorded media over a lifetime that serves as both an example and a challenge for our Lifetime Achievement recipients. As you know, the initial recipient of an award sets a standard for the value and level of excellence that award recognizes. The committee is pleased and honored to recognize C.J. Hadley, the editor of Range Magazine, as the initial recipient of this award. The plaque that we're giving C.J. reads like this: in recognition of her exemplary leadership and editorial talents in publishing the consistently high-quality content of Range Magazine and its library of outstanding publications, all demonstrating her commitment to furthering the well-being of rural America and the survival of their farm and ranch way of life, while celebrating the beauty and the serenity of the Western landscape and its unique inhabitants, both animal and human, and protecting America's precious freedoms as gifted to us by the hard work, sacrifices, and blood of our forefathers. It gives me a great deal of pleasure to present this plaque to C.J. Hadley.
You have to be this bloody old to get this. 31 years of blood, sweat, and tears on range, and some books written by people who've written for range who are so good, so beautiful, so talented, so soulful, so cowboy. I am so honored. I am absolutely, I don't know whether I'm appalled, amazed, or just bloody delighted.
You don't want her to be appalled. The Golden Lariat is an award to recognize and acknowledge people who have contributed their time and talents to the Will Rogers Medallion Committee to make it the success it has become. Those eligible include the board members, past and present, musicians who have entertained, judges, show helpers, and all those others who contribute their time, talent, and labor, and all others unnamed but not unnoticed with their efforts that have gone on to make this particular program a success. This year's honoree is outgoing Executive Director Charles Williams.
Yeah.
He's the reason why we have been going as we have for 18 years. So congratulations, Charles. Our next award goes to Western Photographic Essays. The West as we know it today came of age during the rich early years of photography, coming of age as well. And much of our vision of it is what it's like and what it was is based on those early photographs. Even more important, we know what most of the important people actually looked like. And thanks to the world of Doc Holliday, we not only know what the legendary gunfighter looked like, but we also know what his world looked like, most especially the trains, which were also undergoing an era of rapid growth and change. Author Victoria Wilcox has provided a wonderful pictorial view of a world in transition, as well as a background of one of the most important characters in that world. This book should be on the bookshelf of everyone interested in a look at the West. It was published by Two Dot. Let's give Victoria a round of applause. She wasn't able to be here. Besides an extensive trove of photographs, we are fortunate to have an extensive trove of biographical material written by people who lived these times, or at least wrote about them based on personal experiences. Western biographies and memoirs is always a fascinating category to judge or just to read, because here is the record of how the West happened in its own words. Our fifth place copper medallion goes to an impressively detailed study of a ranch entitled Empire. In many ways, it reads like a novel, but author and historian Jefferson Glass, who is a brilliant historian, by the way, used original sources to trace the growth of immigrant Martin Gothberg's holdings from initial quarter section of homestead to thousands of acres of deeded land supporting cattle and sheep raising to the discovery of oil to bring it into the 20th century. This is the American Dream writ large. Two Dot published this impressive study. Jefferson Glass. Our bronze medallion also goes to another author telling the story of the Wild Bunch. Bill Bitterson's book, Butch Cassidy, The Wyoming Years, is very different in tone and content. For one thing, the author is a relative of Robert Leroy Parker. For another, he has spent time and effort checking out all the stories he heard growing up, even going to South America. The result is a very readable but very factual account of the life and times of Butch Cassidy. The author has had to sort through all sorts of smoke and mirrors to get down to a bedrock of fact, that he has done so without losing sight of the fact that other people are interested as well. The real-life, flesh and blood Butch comes alive in this book. High Plains Press published this thoroughly researched book, so let's hear it for Bill's book. Bill is here. He was so quiet. I didn't know that he was, I thought he had left.
I'm here.
Let's hear it for Bill again. Occasionally, or perhaps more often than not, when looking at Western characters, you run across one that is way larger than life, and their story reads like one of those dime novels that were written especially because of all of the amazing details. This is the case of Ned Buntline, as detailed in The Notorious Life of Ned Buntline by Julia Brickman. The subtitle is A Tale of Murder, Betrayal, and the Creation of Buffalo Bill. It could have just as well been, You Ain't Gonna Believe This, but she wrote at least 400 and maybe twice that in dime novels. He fought for the Union during the Civil War, married at least 8 women, and cavorted with countless others. Actually fought in the Seminole War, joined the Know Nothing Party, campaigned for temperance between drunks, discovered Buffalo Bill, and those are just a few of his highlights. The author has done an admirable job of separating fact from fiction, probably better than Edward Zane Carroll Judson Sr. himself did. This is another must-have from Two Dots. Let's have a round of applause for Julia Brickman. With a lineup like that, what does it take to garner a gold medallion? The answer is the autobiography of one of the most important Western authors and educators of the 20th century, Walter Prescott Webb. Midwestern State professional Michael L. Collins has updated and annotated this classic work and published it for the first time. It provides an insight to Dr. Webb's background, his early life, how he formed his opinions of the Great Plains and the Texas Rangers, and a great many other thoughts and reflections and sharp insights on Texas rural life, academia, and life in general. I'm exhausted just telling you all that's crammed in this book. The University of Oklahoma Press has done a great service to academics, historians, and anyone interested in the creative process by publishing Professor Collins' book. So let's hear it for Professor Collins.
CJ, I know how you feel. It's overwhelming. Our next category is closely related to biographies and memoirs, but generally presents a wider and more nuanced view of history. Western nonfiction is always one of our most competitive categories. We keep saying that, but we are proud of our categories and we are proud of how competitive they are. Anyway, Western fiction is always one of our most competitive categories, and authors are always willing to provide insight, background facts, careful research, and fearless opinions. Not everyone always agrees with those opinions. Our 5th place copper medallion goes to one of the more controversial books published in the last year. Doug J. Swenson's epic history of the Texas Rangers, entitled Cult of Glory. This book points out 2 very important facts and stirs up a firestorm of opinion and controversy. The first fact is that not all the Texas Rangers' history is admirable. The second fact is that at one point in their history, the Texas governor used a body of men commissioned as Texas Rangers to spread violence and act as a death squad on the Texas-Mexico border. The book itself is well written, if not always balanced. Viking is the one who published it. Place copper medallion winner covers a topic that most of us probably have not considered much, but which the residents of the Western states particularly the ones in the mining towns, considered not only to be the most important, but vital: theater. One of the first buildings that many a mining town constructed out of permanent materials was an opera house, where not only musicians were presented, but stage plays as well. Carolyn Grattan Eichen, I think, has explored this spread of culture in the aptly named, from San Francisco eastward, Victorian theater in the American West, because that is the course of how the culture spread. The book covers a little known but somewhat surprising and lasting history of a very key element of the civilizing of the frontier. My only quibble is that she didn't mention Judge Roy Bean and the Jersey Lily, Langtree Lily. Just kidding. The Bronze Medallion winner is perhaps one of the most unusual subjects we have ever honored. A photograph of a wild horse. Desert Dust is the picture, was the horse's name, and he was a Palomino Mustang captured near the end of World War II and photographed in the wild. The photograph became world famous, and 40 years later, responding to a simple question from his daughter, a man set out on a surprisingly complex and equally compelling journey to find the details behind that photograph. Authors Paul Papa and R.J. Gillian, in this surprising book, paint a fascinating picture of the West right after a world war, when technology was entering the range, but the traditional West was still alive and well. HPD Publishing printed this informative glimpse into a rapidly changing world. It's a fair question to ask. Why was the women's suffrage movement so much more successful in the West than it was in the East? Is it the tradition of strong women developed during the wagon train era? Is that a factor? Did the can-do because I must do attitude develop during the pioneer days carry over? One answer for sure is that leadership in the West was markedly stronger. Chris S. has done her usual superb job of telling the story of those determined and effective women in No Place for a Woman. She shows how, despite varying hardships and circumstances, their conviction and faith that it was an idea whose time has come enabled them to finally triumph. The Silver Medallion goes to this inspiring story of courage and persistence. Despite an initial hiccup, Two Dot has gotten it right and published this must-have slice of American history. Congratulations. The Gold Medallion goes to a combination of stories about faith in the future, the courage to overcome all obstacles, both man-made and nature-made, the belief that ranches and ranching life depend on determination, knowledge, and persistence, not on gender. And the cows don't care who takes care of them, as long as somebody does. With her usual style and enticing writing, Linda Womack tells the stories of 17 of these legendary women and ranching women of Colorado. The Homestead Act of 1862 opened up the opportunity for courageous souls to forge a new beginning. And these are the stories of how this very group of typically non-typical women took advantage of that opportunity. Claxton Press printed this notable contribution to the history of the West.
Good news, we're halfway through the program. Our next category is inspirational Western fiction. These books display the difficulties and triumphs of living out lives of faith. While many or even most are Christians, our definition is a little wider than that. The books in this category show the impact of strong belief in God on the Western experience, and we are pleased and proud to honor them. The fact that this is such an active and competitive category is also a source of pride for us, as well as the hope for the future. The Copper Medallion for 5th place goes to a generational story of immigrants coming to America and making a life here. The immigrants in Norsk Fields are from Norway, and the story is based on author Anne Schroeder's own family. It is a story of faith and action, believing in the future, and in the hard work and overcoming all obstacles. This confirmation of the American dream is lived by real people with real problems, and real triumph was published by Good Life Books. Let's have a round of applause for Anne, please. The Copper Medallion for 4th place goes to a very different kind of setting and a very different kind of faith. That dish at Gracie's Cafe is set in a small town, Texas, during Prohibition, and is a tale of trying to survive during hard financial times and marital dysfunction. In the end, Gracie and her estranged husband are reunited by faith, love, and a barbecue. That certainly is what would do it in my home. A very nostalgic trip, well told by Kay Lynn Worth and published by True Two Story Publishing. The bronze 3rd place medallion goes to Mary Davis for her tale set in Washington State just before the turn of the 20th century. The Damsel's Intent is the title of her book. She's created one of the most charming, if unusual, heroines in her Quilting Circle series of books. What if you had a young lady kept isolated by her grandfather while she was growing up, but then was left alone when he died? She knows she has to get married, even though she's not entirely sure about the concept. Her adventures and misadventures keep this narrative merrily boiling along, and her faith keeps her going, even when it seems like the easiest thing would be to go back to her secure mountain home. Mountain Brook Inc. published this enjoyable read. Let's hear it for The Damsel's Intent. If you're not an outlaw, then you are in law enforcement, is the motto of County and District Attorney of Rusk County, Texas, and author Michael E. Jimerson. However, as he shows in Where No Man Pursueth, it's not always that simple, and sometimes man's law and God's law are in conflict. Set in East Texas during segregation, a young man saves a man from being lynched and sets off a train of consequences that ends with the major characters in a courthouse deliberating over an old murder and the ownership of 200 acres in the middle of an oil field. This book is rich in legal, law enforcement, and human detail. It is published by Atmosphere Press. And it's wonderful. Congratulations, Ray. Nothing is simple in Moccasin Rock, Texas. Start with the Medicines Show with a beautiful young lady who is also a petty crook and a swindler. Add a young doctor who has been her victim. That's not enough, throw in a tornado, but this is Texas after all. And an escaped outlaw. Stir in some friends who are not exactly what they seem to be, and it's enough to make a man question his faith in the future. Laura Connor Kessner has teamed with Sycamore House Publishing to bring this exciting and complex gold medallion tale of faith and redemption to her fans and soon-to-be fans. Congratulations.
My goodness. What a year for Western fiction. Our most compelling and competitive category is always Western fiction. This year was no exception. We're very proud of the exceptionally high level of fiction across the board. And this was our most competitive year ever. I say that every year, but every year I mean it. Western fiction is vibrant, it's growing, and we could have easily honored twice as many as outstanding books as we are able to. When I first saw the cover of Dudes Rush In, I will have to admit that I thought romance, or maybe even young adult. The first couple chapters seemed to confirm this, with inviting reading and a likable heroine. But author Lynn Downey introduces more twists and turns than a desert sidewinder and some situations that are nearly as deadly to produce a fifth-place copper medallion read. Pronghorn Press was responsible for bringing this promising first novel to life to us. We look forward to more novels from this author. One question we're often asked is, do we accept re-releases? The short answer is, if they have a new ISBN number, we presume that the content has been changed enough to warrant the new number, and therefore we accept it as such. In this case, our fourth place copper medallion winner, Paul Cole's exceptional tale of the Northern Indian Wars, Grasshopper in Summer, is one of the best and most balanced telling of that clash between two cultures through the making and breaking of the Fort Laramie Treaty. This historical fiction is at its best. This is historical fiction at its best. And Tyree Press, an imprint of Agma Creative Media, has brought it to us. Thank you. Well, he should.
He paid them to do that.
I hope you paid him a lot. I don't know. Was Bass Reeves the model for the Lone Ranger? Whether he was or wasn't, Bass Reeves was one of the most interesting characters in the Western frontier. Sidney Thompson has researched Bass Reeves literally from cradle to grave and has told this story in a 3-volume set. The first volume, Follow the Angels, Follow the Does, follows Bass from his birth into slavery and his growth into manhood in a privileged environment. He had access to firearms and indeed was an excellent shot, but he still was very much a slave. This bronze medallion winning book ends with a dramatic story of how he got out of bondage. While he is presented as fiction, it's obvious that the author has made it as accurate as possible. Save for the dialogue, which of course was not recorded, and a little bit of R-rated scenes, which also were obviously not recorded. The University of Nebraska Press is to be commended for publishing this very important work, and we eagerly look forward to the following 2 volumes. The silver medallion goes to another carefully and deeply researched book. W. Michael Farmer's astounding story of an Apache chief's accomplishments while a prisoner of the United States Army. He's entitled it The Odyssey of Geronimo because in many ways Geronimo's saga echoes that of Homer's Ulysses, except of course Geronimo never made it home. Written in Farmer's usual skill and ability to make his hero very human and very sympathetic, he shows us just how such a remarkable person as Geronimo and what he was and how he got that way. Five-star Gale published this fascinating account of an extraordinary piece of American history. Our gold medallion goes to another outstanding piece of traditional Western storytelling. The Sons of Philo Gaines has everything you want in a Western. Admirable heroes, dastardly villains, crisp dialogue, page-turning pace, a dash of humor, descriptive settings so real you can smell the dust and feel the heat, and enough mystery to keep you turning the pages. Philo himself was a Western legend, and while his three sons are very different Westerners, a scholar, a gambler, and a gunman, they are all strong characters. They end up in the same place in a series of different but very much in character occurrences and circumstances. And they do what Western heroes are supposed to do. Right wrongs, get rid of the bad guys, and bring peace, prosperity, and the blessings of civilization to a town. Michael R. Ritt has written a totally satisfying tale that leaves you wanting more of the three brothers. Five-star Gale published what we hope will be the first in many more to come.
We have come at last to our final, but by no means least category. Cowboy poetry is where the Will Rogers Medallion Award got its start, and it's close to our hearts. We are proud and pleased to honor these outstanding books of cowboy poetry. The cowboy poetry books this year, while few in number, were once more closely grouped, and the judges had to struggle to place the entries. This is a matter of great pride to us, as we have already noted. This is where this organization got our start. Our silver medallion book is cowboy poetry from a slightly different perspective, but still an authentic cowboy voice. Patricia Forlander writes of loss, readjustment, and life on a ranch with sensitivity and hope for the future in her book, Second Wind. High Plains Press published this novel. Our gold medallion winner in this most important category is a familiar name. You guys might have heard of Charles Williams. By the way, we emphasize this category as cowboy poetry rather than cowboy and western because while we are good judges of cowboy poetry, we are not experts in any other types of poetry to be fair judges. Dust from Distant Trails is an excellent example of what we mean by cowboy poetry. It is published by Cowbarn Cowboy Productions. As is our custom, it's our pleasure and honor to present a selection from the Gold Medal publication. We are most pleased to be able to present a very distinguished cowboy poet and philosopher, Charles' good friend, Vess Quinlan.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for coming. This is more of an honor than you can imagine. What I'd like you to do is think a minute about this poem that we're going to read from Charles' collection. Happened, he said, around 1990. He and a friend Tater had been to the Cowboy Poetry Gathering in Lubbock, and they decided to come home traveling a back road to Texas. So I want you to think about these guys driving through these small towns. Said they were almost out of gas, concerned about running out of gas, but more and more concerned about what they were seeing, about the empty towns that had been emptied out of young people, emptied out of work, and thinking about what this might all mean in the future. And if we think back to those days, things are probably even worse now. This poem is called Virtues, Values, and Dreams. A small cafe bravely lights the evening sky. Boarded up windows stare with an empty eye. The tank at the gas station is long since run dry. Small towns America is barely getting by. Farmers and ranchers and a small businessman or two left behind by the youth as to the cities they flew, complaining there's nothing here to do. And what did all that hard work and sacrifice ever get you? We want the things that TV says life means, and having them now is important, it seems. They've traded small town virtues, values, and dreams for the big city greed and appearances and schemes. But in the end, it don't matter where you live, but how. There's no special virtue in chasing a cow, and dreams can live in the city somehow. What's important is to what God do you bow. There's more to life than fancy shoes and dangerous jeans. These farmers and ranchers are richer than it seems. No country can survive on greed and appearances and schemes. America needs your small town virtues and values and dreams. Charles Williams.
Please do not forget our group portrait, which will be happening right after we close. But let us close this evening with a blessing from a great cowboy cartoonist, Mr. A.T. Echeverry. I was going to say that. May your saddle fit your pony. May your days be sweet and bright. May your friends and family love you through all your days and nights. May your dreams be high and lofty, and your prayers be heard by God. That's all, folks. Thank you very much for coming. May God bless you.